Hello and welcome, practical proficiency people. It's so good to be hanging out with you. So, are you ready for today's class? I know that you are just drooling to be a part of it after I left you a little bit hanging from last week. Last week, if you are new to the crew, I sent out a survey to world language teachers asking, how are you feeling in your journey to comprehensible input teaching methods? Are you either teacher one or teacher two? And teacher one is the teacher one that we talked about last week. Teacher one is, I want to do CI, but ... And there were so many submissions for both teacher one and teacher two that I decided to split it into two videos. So last week was teacher one and this week is teacher two. Teacher two is, yeah, I'm in it and I'm doing CI, but it's hard. So we're going to talk today in a little bit of a Q&A style with your questions. So let's jump right in. Now, I sincerely apologize for not coming on a little bit earlier, and I'm going to tell you why. This is what happened. I am in EST time zone and my eyes are hurting because of the shift and where I usually film. The light is all kinds of crazy. So I was trying to shift and find around a good place to go, but we're working with what we got. So I hope that you can see everything and that it is not too blinding or crazy for you, but you might see some streaks from the blinds today. That's just how we're going to be rolling with it. And I hope that that is cool with you. So let me know, since we're on that subject with the fresh time change, if you are in a time zone that does the time shift, whether you're here in the US or in another place, what's been a weird thing for you with the time shift? I was we were sweating our faces off, even though it was cold. With my running club, we're training together. I'm part of a running club to do a half marathon. And last night we were all crying sweaty tears about how friggin' dark it was while we were running outside doing our sprints and speed work. It was so dark. I couldn't see 3 feet in front of me. That was the weirdest shift about that hour back. But so tell me, what's one weird thing that's happened for you with this weird time shift that we do that is crazy outdated? I don't know why we do it anymore, but that's a tangent. So tell me what's something funny that's been going on with you this week with the time shift. Another one for me too is that I've always wanted to get up earlier in the morning and be more of a morning person, but I'll be honest with you, I have a lot of trouble sleeping. So it's always been really hard for me. And this whole time shift is a great opportunity to jump on it. So I've been getting up earlier since your body clock is already a little bit off. And so far it's going pretty well. So we'll see. We'll see. Wish me luck. We'll see. But you're going to see a lot of, I already see myself in here looking at it. Let me open this up so I can see comments as well. You might hear some background noise in here. I don't think so. All right, cool. So when you jump in with your comments, I'll have them right here so that I can see them. Tell me something funny that's been going on for you with the time shift. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen because I have so much good stuff to share with you. Yeah, the time shift is weird. Time shift is weird for me. I can't deal with it. Although I'm not going to lie, I do like the extra hour of sleep. I'm into that. I am into that. All right. We are rolling. Is this the right one? No. No. Where's the other one? Don't worry, y'all. We'll get to the right place. In the meantime, while you're dealing with me fumbling around, tell me about what you've been doing this week in your class. All right, and let's try this again. What I have to share with you too is what has been what many of the survey respondents said. So we're going to go through question by question. Oh, I think I figured out why it's not showing up properly. Here we go. Let's try this out. Oh my gosh, what's going on here? Y'all, I'm having a moment. All right, well, you know what? Whatevs. We're going to make it work. How many of you have had one of these moments where like the technology you're supposed to be using is not working? All right, so I am going to make some magic happen behind the scenes real quick. Do. It's just a party up in here. There's so much fun stuff going on. The internet is confused, as am I. All right. Third time's a charm. Cross your fingers. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Come on, Zoom. I believe in you. I also believe in myself. Oh, this is it. Is it working? Boom. All right, I got it. That was weird. I don't know what happened there, but that's all right. We're going to roll right along here and let's make up for some lost time. So, you know the deal. If you're new to these parts, welcome. It's a fun day to be here. It is indeed. And you just watch me go through a real hilarious tech breakdown that I'm sure that you can relate to. But I'm Devin, and it's so nice to meet you if you're new around these parts. And if you are an old friend, then welcome back. I'm so glad to have you. Welcome to Wolang Wednesday. This is what we do every Wednesday at 4 p.m. We're rolling with it. You can hang out with me at all of these places, but my absolute favorite place to be is here with you on classes like this. We do this every Wednesday, y'all. You think I'd be better at sharing my screen then? It usually works if I have two panels, but not today. So that's all right. We're going to go ahead with business as usual and set our intention and action plan. This is what we do before every Wolang Wednesday class. You ready? Okay. Let me know in the comments below too if you can see and hear everything. Clearly, I need a little bit of extra love today. Send it my way. I need it. I'm going to set my intention right now that I'm going to give all of my focus and attention to you because I have really good stuff to share with you today. And I want you to set your intention. See, my attention's already on you. Set your intention for your class today. What are you going to get out of our time together? I know that you came to watch this class for a reason. There are many of you who email me and tell me that you watch these every Wednesday. Even if you can't make the lives, you watch the replays on YouTube or you watch them in the Facebook group. And I'm honored to have a slice of your time. That is a huge gift. That's the best gift that you could give me is your time. It's your most valuable asset. So make sure that you are getting out of this what you expect to by putting an intention behind it. What are you going to learn today? Make sure that after this class, something shifts for you because I have something big to tell you. So make sure that you watch this through to the end because something is going to shift for you by the end of this class. I know it will, because many of the questions that I got about I am starting with CI or I am in my journey with comprehensible input proficiency methods, whatever you want to call it. There's a whole class about that term and how loaded it can be. Check YouTube. You'll see all the replays. And I remember being in your shoes and typing these same things. So you are not alone, but I know the shift that you need to experience in order for this to feel doable for you, for this to be practical for you. So make sure that you have that same intention, that you are looking for a change. You are looking for a shift. You are not looking to stay where you are at today. What are you going to do this week, even if it's only one thing? Even if it's only one thing. This is a bonus class. I was intending to stop this start with CI series last week, but the results were incredible. I got so many survey responses that I knew that I had to dig into this. So make sure that you join the Facebook group so that you can watch live, but you can always find the replay. You can always find the replay. They're forever free. So hello, replay friends, if you're watching this from the replay. Where you'll get stuck, Q&A. This one is for teacher number 2. It's I've started, but. So I've started with proficiency, but this is how I'm feeling. It's hard. So this is one of the questions that I asked. If you didn't get a chance to look at the survey, or maybe you're new to this. Now that I've started with CI, I feel. Answer that question for yourself right now. Now that I've started with CI, I feel. Examine what comes up for you, because it should be like a gut reaction. What comes up for you? Now that I've started with CI, I feel. Here were the 4 most common responses. Some of them were in slightly different words, but here's what they were. Overwhelmed. Tired. Excited. I don't feel like I'm doing blank right. And an honorable mention should honestly be that my curriculum, my department, my school, my stakeholders are either not prepared or not set up for this. That should be an honorable mention. Overwhelmed, tired, excited. I don't feel like I'm doing this right. Insert whatever here. There were many different things. People said things like, I don't know if I'm using enough language. When should I start doing this? I don't know if TPRS is enough. Like, what framework should I be using with this curriculum? Am I pacing my units correctly? It was a lot of like, lack of confidence. And here's what I have to share with you. This is the shift you need to make. This is the shift that happy and successful teachers make. Overwhelm is a perspective. It doesn't mean that it's not true for you or that's true for me, because overwhelm was very true for me in many, many different times in my comprehensible input journey. But it's not a fact. It's a perspective. What's the good news about that? You can shift your perspective. You have control over your perspective. Teaching with comprehensible input and proficiency is simply a fact, the method that you are using or what you're trying to get to, right? How you feel about it is a state, is a perspective. And the good news about that is that even though it is very real and it's very yucky, you can move out of it. And it's really important that you do, because you will not make good decisions in a state of overwhelm. In a state of overwhelm, you will be on decision overload. You will question everything that you do, and you will never feel like what you're doing is enough or that it's even on the right path. How's that sound? Is that where you want to be? No. So let's get down to the bottom of this. Overwhelm is often the result of misaligned expectations. What do I mean by that? I mean, let's look at the first part of this. I've started with comprehensible input and I feel. I've started. Homegirl, homeboy, you just started. Of course you're overwhelmed. You have so much further to go, and you have a lot of time to get there. It's not a race. It's not a race. You think you have to be good at this right away because you're already a good teacher. So putting on a new teaching method feels like it should come naturally to you, especially since proficiency is often sold to us as this is the natural approach to teaching. But I can't even get through that statement. But here's the funny part about this. Of course it is. That's true. But all most of us know is traditional teaching practices. So, friend, you're a beginner. It's okay to not feel like you know what you're doing. And to feel overwhelmed is completely normal. But release yourself from it. Give yourself the gift of releasing yourself from the expectation of being able to teach proficiency aligned methods at the same caliber of the teacher that you are now, because you are a student teacher in proficiency, because you just started. You just started. You just started. And I will tell you that it was very inspiring to go to workshops and to go to attend events and to watch videos and things like that of teacher experts who use this methodology, because I would learn so much from them every time that I did. But the number one thing that always stuck in my mind was they've been doing this for years. They've been doing this for years. So ask yourself, how long have you been doing this? And realign your expectations for how well it should be going. I want you to be thinking, what was it like if you just started with this in maybe you started this year. Let's start with that example. I started with CI. I started this year. Good on you. That's brave. You're brave. You're my people. You're my kind of people. If you just started this year and it's November, what did your classroom look like in your first 3 months in your first year? You remember, right? You remember. That's where you're at in your journey in proficiency. You're not starting completely from scratch. Maybe you're at like the halfway point, like the 6-month mark, because you're able to use your experience and go a lot faster. But it's completely okay for it to be a mess. It's completely okay. That's where you should be. That's where you should be. It's part of the process. Number 2, that's very important, is information overload. This is so real with any new teaching method. This is not at all unique to our situation or world languages. Information overload. Whether you are like a responsible teacher and trying to be more culturally responsive, huge information overload, as well as varying strategies for how you can do that in your classroom better. Whether you are trying to do project-based learning, huge information overload, tons of people doing it and people doing it differently, even just in world language. Whether you are trying to use, insert teaching method here, insert best practice here. If you're new to something, there's always information overload because you don't have enough experience yet to understand what's going to be right for you quite yet. So you're going to be on info overload. And that's where your overwhelm comes from. So you, as a responsible learner, and think about where you're feeling right now too, because your students feel this in your classroom as well. So think about that metacognition that's going on in your head right now. Take responsibility of your own learning and try on different approaches one at a time, not all at the same time. Okay. Now, I want to give you a nice little picture of your class. This is an old picture of my classroom from 2019, a million years ago, 2019 to 2020. Here's a picture of your class. Okay, so come back to these feelings. I don't feel like I'm doing this right. I'm overwhelmed and I'm tired. Maybe I'm excited too. And we're going to talk about excited as well. Just picture this. Here's just another day in the life for you. These are some things that people have either emailed me about, asked me about on Instagram and Facebook, or have asked about in this survey. You ready? Just another day in your life. I have chronic absences. I have very weird quarantine setups. Let me know in the comments below, like which one of these applies to you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all of them. Number 2, your admin probably doesn't know what you're doing or why. Number 3, your colleagues might not get it. Not saying that they're bad. No. Nothing along those lines. They just have different priorities than you do. Your colleagues might not get it. They might have different priorities than you do for their classroom. Number 4, your students aren't used to it. They like it, but they're not quite used to it. Or maybe they're not really responding to you the way that you would expect them to. Number 5, you've never seen or experienced a comprehensible input class. Maybe you've never even experienced proficiency before until you heard other teachers talk it up in a Facebook group. A lot of people tell me that. Number 6, you have a list of comprehensible input should do's, things that you know, you're like, oh, I know a proficiency oriented teacher does this, and I know that I'm not doing it. Mine was target language. Mine was always target language. What's yours? We all have one. And maybe you have a bunch of lesson templates. I had a bunch of lesson templates from workshops and trainings, and I'm sure that you probably do. If you attend my conference for CI teachers, you get a bunch of lesson plan templates. But maybe you have them and they're just kind of sitting there and you would love to use them, but you're not even really sure quite how to implement that lesson plan past the one day that you tried it. Like it's not really part of your routine yet. Or maybe you don't really know how to teach that way. You don't feel like you have the time to learn it, let alone how do you grade it? What? Like, how do you do that? And number 7, my favorite one, because this is my jam, my curriculum is not set up for this. My curriculum's not set up for this. Can you relate to any of these? Do any of these feel real for you? This is my answer. Just let it wash over you. This is my answer. Grace. This is what you're facing every dang day. Grace. Stop beating yourself up. Stop saying that you don't quite know how to do what you're supposed to be doing, quote unquote. Guess what? You haven't figured out how to do it yet. You're on the pathway there. And 2% better for the win. 2% better for the win. 2% better is my personal life mantra that I love to share with you, that if you reframe your perspective of instead trying to be an expert at comprehensible input all at once, what if you tried to make your classroom just like 2% more proficient? Maybe 2% more target language. Maybe tried one new routine this week and see how it goes. 2% better. Give yourself some grace. Each of you is facing an incredibly challenging year. I've heard I'm not in the classroom myself this year because I have the privilege of serving you behind the scenes full time because you need that support. And I've heard from many of you that this year is harder than last year. Harder than last year. Grace. Please give yourself some grace. And the last thing that I want to touch on is excitement. You feel excited. And this one, I'm going to let you tell the story because this is exciting. It is. The very first question I asked on the survey was, because you might be thinking and looking at all this and being like, well, dang, why does anybody even do proficiency? Here's why. Ignore the dog. I'll just let you read. Ignore the dog. She's the worst. Thanks for your patience. All right. So going back to this here, I hope you had a chance to read some of these here, that they're awesome. But this is why it's so exciting to be a part of a proficiency-oriented classroom. I mean, look at these. It's the natural approach. I know it's the right thing to do for my students. It's logical. I want a better way to help my students. I want to see if my students learn better. It's awesome. I want to tell you why I faced all of these in my classroom, because I know exactly where you're at, because I felt this way too. This is a picture of my classroom, and there's a really cool story behind it. So I wrote this story about a student. I don't know how to write stories like at all. I've never learned how to do that. I just heard that it was a good idea, so I decided to try it. And I was looking for something new, a new way to engage a class that especially wasn't really into what I was doing in class. So I started doing stories, and I decided to do stories about my students. And this story in particular was about a student, and she was so excited for the story to be about her that she volunteered to do all of the drawings for the whole next week. And her language was impeccable about all of the aspects of these high frequency French verbs that had to do with her story. And it was so cool. It was so cool. And these are the moments, these are the reasons why I decided to deal with the rest of all this. Is that right there? Because of the moments where I saw light years of progress from all students that was not at all reflected by their grades, not at all reflected by their grades in other classes even, and not at all reflected really by their effort in class. The method of focusing on language instead of about language features, even if you do it really imperfectly, made such a huge difference in my classroom. And I know that that's the reason why you do it too. It made a difference for individual students. That's why I cared about it so much. And that's why I know that you are ready to step out of overwhelm and be excited about this. It wasn't working well. I can tell grammar heavy lessons are too difficult. Our department decided it was time to make the switch. That's awesome. I observed a CI class and saw how much Spanish they could use. I've seen how much students respond to it, all that good stuff. The research shows it's more effective. I know it's the right thing to do. It's the natural approach, logical approach. I'm convinced that it's the route to go. I want to see if my students learn better. They will. It was the method my university teacher training program taught. That's awesome. I'm so jealous of you. I'm so jealous of you. But y'all, this is the reason why it's important for you to shed the feelings when you first start that are completely natural. They happen. But most of the survey responses from the 48 people who responded were seethed in, dang, this is a lot of work. This is overwhelming. And this is, I don't feel like I'm doing this right. Let's go back to this one. Of course you're not. You just started. Give yourself some grace. The journey is worth it. The journey is worth it. And it's really joyful. I hope that this helped you as we go through some of these here. And now I want to ask you, what is one thing that is going to help you this week? What is your 2% rule for this week? And I want to ask you specifically, where are you going to give yourself grace? Where can you celebrate your progress instead of sitting in your overwhelm? What you focus on is what grows and expands in your life. So celebrate your progress. It is so important. If you're constantly looking at the ways that you fall short and you're not there yet, That's all you will ever see as a beginner in this. Celebrate your progress instead, because your progress is there. You're probably just not seeing it as much because we all suffer from negativity bias as people. Celebrate your progress. And where are you going to give yourself grace this week? Tell me, for serious, here's what you need to do next. Where are you going to give yourself grace today? Where are you going to give yourself grace? And the next thing that I have for you is, if you are looking for, many people ask for a framework in this survey. They're like, I do not have a framework. I'm looking for structure. If this is you, if you feel this, or if you feel like the overwhelm is really hard for you to shed, I have something that's going to help you. Download at lalibrelanguagelelearning.com/toolkit, and you will find there a 9 steps to proficiency roadmap, as well as lots of things that punch overwhelm in the face when it comes to teaching with proficiency and getting started on the right track. It is all about, it's a giant ebook of my best stuff, of all the ways that I have streamlined and systemized what it looks like to make the leap from where you're at to where you want to be, a proficiency-oriented teacher. Has a lot of good ideas for you, as well as some quizzes to see where you're currently at and where you need to go based on your current status. So make sure you check it out. And if you're not already in this Facebook group, make sure that you join it. PD with La Libre. I will put the link below if you are watching this on the replay. But for my live friends, it's so good to hang out with you. Thanks for all your patience with all the noise and the technical difficulties that we had today. It was a joy to hang out with you despite all of those distractions. And I hope that you learned something in despite of those distractions as well. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And I hope that you learned something that you can take with you into your classroom and your teaching experience, and that you find a way to live more in the excitement and less in the overwhelm. And I don't know this and I don't know that. Focus on your progress. Recognize that the overwhelm that you're feeling is normal, but that it's also a perspective and you can choose to move out of it. I will catch you next Wednesday at 4 p.m. And until then, let me know what all your 2% better moves are and how you're going to give yourself grace. And I will see you next time.